Man, I couldn't sing because this banner was crooked. I'm sorry, Mark, I wasn't paying attention. That's got enough to lead someone away from Christ right there. I fixed it, though. All right, we're all good. It's good to see everyone that is here this morning. It's good to see visitors in the audience. It's good to see our members here. It's good to see family that's maybe been out of town back here with us. I know we have people tuned in online, so we're glad that you're there too. Which, by the way, as you knew that Teresa, yesterday was her last day here. She hit the road today, but she promised that she was going to tune into the live stream. So, Teresa, I'm waving at you. I'll find out in the comments whether or not she waved back. But we had a good weekend this weekend. We had our Saturday in the Park Kids Day, end of summer church picnic here at the church. There's a lot of pictures of it on the Instagram and on the Facebook page. You can check it out there. But that was a lot of fun. Really appreciate everyone that helped, whether it be setup, cleanup, making food, teaching the classes, watching the kids, bringing kids, inviting people. That was a great time. All the adults that were there and the kids had a good time with that. We'll probably schedule something else maybe going on here in a few months outside too if it's not too cold. Other upcoming events, remember Ladies' Day is September the 24th, and there's information in the foyer and flyers and things like that. You could talk to Marty for more information, but that is coming up next month. It's all my birthday too, by the way, so you can all bring a present on that day too. But the West Visalia Ladies' Day is on September the 24th here at the church building. That's always a big event for the ladies. And then our youth forum is October the 22nd, and we're going to even have some lessons on the 23rd, but primarily one day on the 22nd. I'll have more information soon with that, but mark that on your calendar. October 22nd, 23rd, the theme is Own It. And then heading into the wintertime, December 28th through the 31st is our winter camp up at YBC. So make sure you mark all those down on your calendar. The youth forum's a little bit later in the month than it has been in the past, and winter camp is one day ahead this year because the way it worked out scheduling-wise, this worked out great with the way the holidays kind of fell there. So mark that all on your calendar. Last year, we were supposed to have winter camp. We had everything planned. All the food was ordered. The cars were packed. I had already taken my trailer up to Bible camp, and lo and behold, a storm came through. And snow fell, and snow fell, and snow fell. And I'm talking to the caretaker up at camp, and I'm watching weather report. I'm looking at road conditions, and we had to make the call a couple days before Bible camp that we had to cancel winter camp because there was about that much foot of snow all over everything at camp, and you can't have people walking to cabins. They were requiring chains to go up there, and half of our camp staff comes from places where they all drive Priuses, so they couldn't make it up there. And they're good cars, so they get great gas mileage. They have something on me pulling with that expedition up there. But anyway, we had to cancel winter camp. And I was discouraged about that. Not only was I discouraged after cancel winter camp, I was discouraged because then I started getting messages from people. Well, my kids really look forward to winter camp. They're going to be so discouraged. I know. And then I got that call again. And then again. And then again. And then people go, well, are we going to do something else? What are we going to do for the kids? I don't know what we can do. I can't control the weather. And I remember I was really discouraged after that because it was almost nothing I could do, and I've tried really hard to control the weather. I prayed really hard, but I like snow at winter camp. I like about that much snow at winter camp, not that much snow. Maybe God misunderstood my prayer, but it was a discouragement at the end of all that because we weren't able to have the event that I wanted, and sometimes people were upset about that. People second-guess your decision, and you have to stand by a decision, and you have to justify a decision, and it's sometimes discouraging when you have to do that. But let me ask you the question this morning. Have you ever been discouraged? I bet you have. I bet you all of us can pinpoint something, maybe even this week, where we were discouraged, where we kind of felt hopeless, where we felt downtrodden, where we felt like, I just don't know how to handle the situation. So mentally, let's think through it. How did you deal with it? How did you deal with those times that you were discouraged? Specifically, how did you deal with times maybe when you were discouraged when it came to even your Christianity or the church or your role in it? How did you deal with those times of discouragement? Because if you do a quick Google search really quickly and just type in discouragement, church, Christianity, something along those lines, you'll find that discouragement is super common in the church, especially among church leaders. Now, I'm a preacher, so I talk to other preachers, and everybody's always talking about how discouraged you are a lot of times. And that's being open and transparent. It's easy to get discouraged when you are involved heavily in the church because, again, whether you're a preacher or not, you put your heart and soul into it. It's something you believe in, you're passionate about. It has to do with eternity. It has to do with saving people. It has to do with helping people grow close to Christ. And it's easy with that when you have something you're so emotionally involved in to not go the way that you think it should, to get discouraged. Let's remove the church out of it even. Maybe in your family, have you ever been discouraged when it came to your kids or your spouse or your extended family because you love them, you're close to them, there's a connection there, and when it doesn't go the way it's supposed to, you just feel, discouraged over it. Maybe at work because you put your heart and soul into that, and when there's somebody that doesn't do the same, it hurts you, it makes you feel bad. When someone's not as passionate as you are, it's easy to get discouraged. That's why almost every book written to preachers, elders, pastors, shepherds, whatever, is usually about how to prevent burnout. Because people get burnt out. You get discouraged. Just think about it. And most of you here in this audience have been involved in some kind of church work in some way. Whether it's teaching in our Bible class program, volunteering at camp, helping with Vacation Bible School, being part of a visitation team, being a greeter, anything. We've all been involved in different things in the church work, and it's easy to get discouraged. Think about it. When there's a lack of volunteers, do you get discouraged? At Cliff Sabrel confession time, I do. When we're looking for teachers for Bible class and no one volunteers, I go home and go, that's it. I quit. I'm done. And Zinni has to talk me down a little bit. And then sometimes she goes, that's it, I quit. And I have to talk her back a little bit. Because when there's a lack of volunteers, you get discouraged. And because you have to maybe change programs and work things down. And you're like, anybody ever been part of a door knocking activity and you show up and it's only you that shows up or something like that because no one else volunteered? That's discouraging, right? It happens. Maybe when people don't show up or are just not involved. Maybe there's a church event activity and you're like, well, they didn't come. Why didn't they come? Maybe they don't like us, right? That's what I think. You get discouraged when people don't get involved. You get discouraged when maybe people don't share the same convictions or interpretations as you. Maybe you studied your Bible and you were poring over it and you came to a conclusion from the text and you shared it and they said, well, you're a heretic, or something like that, right? That can become discouraging. Or when people don't get as excited about something in Scripture as you do, it can be discouraging. We've had a lot of members recently moved away. Curtis, if you're watching on the live stream, that's a discouragement, right? When people move away, it's a discouragement. Nothing we can do about it, but it happens. Have you ever had family members move away? It discourages you. You ever had church members move away? They seem to all be leaving California, right? It's a discouragement at times. When ministries you loved are not around anymore. Some of you were part of our church lectureship 20 years ago. You're like, wow, that was the greatest thing we ever did. We don't do it anymore. It's discouraging probably, huh? I'm not saying we need to bring it back. I'm just saying that it is a discouragement when works that you were a part of aren't anymore. I know one day there's not going to be a Yosemite Bible Camp anymore. Everything has a life cycle. Will I lose my faith when Cliff Sabrel can't direct Yosemite Bible Camp anymore? I'm praying really hard I don't, because that's my favorite thing. You know what I mean? What about when the future looks bleak in some areas? Let's be honest. How's the church look in our state, in our country, in the world? Well, not the world. The world's doing well in other places. But how's it look? Maybe the future looks bleak. Maybe the West Visalia Church of Christ will not exist in 10, 20 years. Churches have life cycles. Maybe we don't exist in this place. Maybe we exist in a different way. That happens, right? I'm just throwing all this out there because discouragement happens, doesn't it? All of us have had those thoughts about different things. So what do we do when we get discouraged? Well, that's where the book of Nehemiah comes in. If you're new to us and new to our group here, what we've been doing is we've been working through the text of Nehemiah and trying to find, encouragement for us and examples for us that we can take to heart and apply. But let's back up a little bit and see what's going on. Remember, the Israelites had been in captivity in Babylon. And now we have King Artaxerxes, and Nehemiah is a cupbearer to him. And Nehemiah hears about the conditions of the walls of Jerusalem. He is down, he's hurt, he's upset about it. And he has this idea that we must arise and build. We must fix it. So he goes to the king, and he asks the king for supplies and for permission, and the king grants him that permission to go rebuild the wall. But yet, we find out that Nehemiah gets discouraged very quickly when he embarks on this task. So let's read together. What I want us to see this morning is it is possible, because if you're feeling discouraged right now, because I get discouraged often, I'm sure you do too, it is possible to defeat discouragement, and it's possible to prevent burnout, and the Bible tells us how. Let's read. So not 1 Timothy, that was this morning. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 11. Nehemiah 2, verse 11. You know what? Back up even to verse 9. Then I came to the governors of the provinces beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent me with me officers and an army of horsemen. Nehemiah goes to where the lumber is and to the people there so he can get his supplies. And when he gets there, chapter 2, verse 10, what do we find out? We find out when Sanballat and the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about it, it was very displeasing to them that someone had come to seek the welfare of the sons of Israel. They heard that there is somebody who dared try to make it better, and they didn't like it. Have you ever dealt with that before? Maybe you were at work, and you saw a problem at your company, at your job, and you said, I'm going to try to fix it. And everybody got mad at you for trying to fix it. How dare you deal with it? What do you do? Who do you think you are? They don't like it. People like the status quo. They like doing things the way they've always done them. You go into your job and you try to start changing things. Look, things work the way they are. This happens in church too, right? Someone comes with an idea. Hey, let's change this. Let's do that. Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you trying to do here? Right? That's what they did here. Who do you think you are going in and checking on the walls of Jerusalem? You go on to verse 19. It says, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official and Geshem the Arab heard it, they mocked us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? They're like, look, what is your deal here? Are you going against the king's wishes? Which he wasn't doing, by the way. But they come up with accusations. They make fun of their character. They ridicule them. They mock them. That happens. Have you ever tried to change something somewhere, change the way your family does something, your work does something, your church does something, and people get all upset? That's what's happening here. People got used to the brokenness, like we talked about. They tried to discourage Nehemiah. They tried to get him to quit. And it's easy to do so because if you read verse 11 through verse 18, when Nehemiah goes out there and he surveys the situation, what does it say? Well, verse 13, the gates were broken down and consumed by fire. Verse 14, there was no place for him to pass by. So he had to go at night, and he saw it. Verse 17, the gates were burned with fire. He saw a lot of things that were discouraging. He saw a broken down piles of rubble wherever he went. And not only that, you have people trying to discourage Nehemiah. I bet you felt that way lots of times before. You've seen brokenness. And when you tried to fix it, people didn't respond the way you thought. You got excited about something. You were passionate about something. You said, let's do this. Let's fix that. And everybody else goes, well, and then they ridicule you, mock you, find a reason to not like what you're doing. And why does that happen? Ever thought about that? Why is it that some people make it a point to discourage others? Why did, Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, these guys, why did they choose to discourage other people? Why didn't they go, hey, that's a good idea. Someone needs to fix that wall. Why? Why do people get like that? Because that's common everywhere. It's common there in Jerusalem with rebuilding the wall. It's common in churches. It's common in families. I remember talking to people before at a job I had a long time ago, and almost like the ridicule that certain individuals in these groups had for trying to get a better job. Who do you think you are? Mr. College Boy or whatever it was kind of thing. It was like they want to ridicule other people and make them discouraged. Why? Why do people do that? Well, I wrote down a few reasons why I think it is that some people discourage others. And this isn't an exhaustive list. You probably could come up with your own list, and there's a lot of overlap here. But number one, pride. I think one reason why people have a tendency to purposely discourage other people is because they're prideful. And when they see someone else doing work that should be done, or someone else bettering themselves or bettering a situation, they feel guilty. So instead of doing better themselves, they make fun of them. Maybe they see that, that house is being rebuilt, those ruins are being repaired, but their house is in disarray, and they go, well, I don't want to be looked at bad, so I feel kind of guilty, so I'm going to discourage you. That happens, right? I mean, and then maybe even in a church work, someone's pushing and pushing to get more people involved, to build up this ministry, to reach the lost, and, well, you start feeling guilty, so you find a reason to discourage and temper the zeal a little bit because you don't like the way it makes you feel. Maybe it's bitterness. I don't know why Sanballat and Tobiah were so bitter here, but they were. And there's a lot of bitter people out there in the world. And they don't like it when other people are happy and motivated and driven, so they try to bring them down. Maybe you've dealt with that in your life. Maybe it's just selfish people. Selfish people don't like it when other people do anything, so they want to hurt other people. They're only focused on themselves, so they hurt you. Or maybe they're just hateful people. And that's how awful sin is. Sometimes sin just turns people into hateful individuals, and they want to spread their hate, and they want to make you feel bad, and they want to discourage you. Well, that sounds like a really nice lesson, doesn't it, Cliff? But here's what we're going to see here. It's possible to, even in the face of all this discouragement, to prevent it. It's possible to defeat discouragement and prevent burnout. And this is a lesson for Cliff, by the way. I'm preaching to myself because I'm the guy that gets discouraged and burnt out, okay? So it's possible to defeat that discouragement, though, and prevent burnout. That's what the book of Nehemiah, I think, teaches us. So let's look at it. How to defeat it. This is in no particular order here. I'm just working through the text in chapter 2 and chapter 3. First off, in chapter 2, verse 11, after he was harassed by Sanballat and Tobiah, and they were bothering him, verse 11, it says, "And I came to Jerusalem, and was there for 3 days." He spent time alone, surveying the wall, took a break from the discouragers. Tell you how Cliff works, because I'm an open book here on this. When I get discouraged, because a lot of times after a Sunday, you might think, aren't you on a high after a Sunday? No, I'm drained on a Sunday, because I'm naturally kind of introverted. I can be extroverted up here, but if I had to sit by all of you, I'm really introverted. And so after talking to people and doing that and putting emotion into my lesson or my class, and maybe someone disagreed with me, or someone didn't like this, or someone criticized this, or someone didn't volunteer, I'm drained. So you know what I usually do on Sunday afternoons? I take a walk out there in that orchard. Put in my headphones, listen to some podcasts on a Bible topic or something, and I just get out there and I spend time alone. I take a break. It usually corresponds with family nap time when Zane takes a nap, so I'm not neglecting anybody, don't worry. But I take a break. It's good. Sometimes you just got to get away. And I bet you'd tell me the same thing. Like, I just couldn't stand being around those people for any longer. Maybe you took a break from a certain group of people, a certain job. Do you ever go back from a vacation rejuvenated? Maybe there's a reason why God laid out the Sabbath day, okay, as a day of rest. Take a break. Disconnect. Rejuvenate. So when you're discouraged, find time to take a break. See, I think a lot of times, at least me, my way of thinking is maybe if I double down, I can fix everything, and that's how we act. And no, maybe we just need to turn it all off for a second. Go for a walk. Take a nap. Go outside. Take a vacation. Take a drive. Are you one of those people? Nehemiah here went to Jerusalem and just kind of spent time alone in contemplation for 3 days. But then we go on, look at verse 18. It says, and he finds these people, and he talks to them. He says, "I told them how the hand of my God had been favorable to me, and also about the king's words which he had spoken to me. And then they said, 'Let us arise and build.' So they put their hands to the good work." Verse 20, "So I answered them and said to them, 'The God of heaven will give us success. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build, but you have no portion, right, or memorial in Jerusalem.'" Now, there's a lot there we can have to unpack, but I do like this. In the midst of a moment when Nehemiah was discouraged, what did he do? He trusted God. God's going to accomplish his will. And when you're discouraged, when you're down, you always have to tell yourself, God's going to do what God's going to do, and I'm going to trust God. And Nehemiah prayed to him. When you are discouraged, pray. Turn to God and say, "God, help me." Anytime you're down, anytime you're discouraged, because what we normally do when we're discouraged, we lash out, we get angry, we get bitter, we get upset, we get selfish, we turn to various addictions, whether it be food or alcohol or anything else. But Nehemiah here trusted God, and he prayed to him. when he was discouraged, and he also deflected the discouragement away from him. Instead, basically said, look, God's going to do his will. He deflected the discouragement and proclaimed the power of God. I love verse 20. It's like he took a deep breath after having a prayer, and he goes, the God of heaven will give success. Sometimes when you're discouraged, maybe you need to shout that out loud. The God of heaven will give me success. We got to deflect that discouragement away and be confident in what God can do through you. And then this last point here is one that I always remind myself of. And this is one, especially when you think about church work, is focus on the people who are doing good for God. In verse 17, he gathered people around him of chapter 2 and said, let us rebuild. He found the people that were willing to do that. Verse 18, he talked to those people about what they were going to do. And then the entire chapter 3, and I'm not going to read it all because there's a whole bunch of crazy Hebrew names that I have no clue how to pronounce. But all of those crazy Hebrew names in chapter 3 that he mentions, you know what they are? They're the people that were working. You know what he doesn't mention in there? The people that weren't. The discouragers. The bitter people. No. He focused his attention on the people that wanted to work. Now, as a church leader, it's easy for us to focus on the ones that aren't. You know, we have an event yesterday. It's easy for me to go through my mind the church directory and go, well, they weren't there. Why weren't they there? They're probably upset about something. Or why weren't those people there? Well, they never come to anything anyway. Or why weren't those people there? Well, they haven't been involved in a year. You know, you do that. You go through. But you know what we had? We had amazing people working. We had people helping kids, making food, doing things. Why does my mind go to those that, and I'm not saying you had to be there or anything like that. I mean, you can't go to every church event. I know not everybody wants to go down a water slide. Okay, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? We need to focus on the people who are doing good for God. I can get so bitter, so discouraged thinking about just a couple people that maybe aren't doing the right thing, that it causes me to forget the fact that, whoa, we had 120 people here this morning praising God. Isn't that awesome? I do that. Bible camp rolls around. Well, they don't want to be staff this year. I wonder why. And then I get all down. I get discouraged. What did Nehemiah do? He focused on those that were doing good. He didn't waste his time on the people that were discouragers. And my encouragement to you is don't waste time on the discouragers. Push them out of your life. You got people that want to work. Hang around those people. Find the people that are motivated. Find the people that love Jesus as much as you do. Latch on to them and do great things for God. And when you do that, you can defeat discouragement. That's what Nehemiah did here. You can prevent discouragement, which I mentioned this years ago. Those little spikes next to that bird, those are called discouragers. You can install them on church signs and stuff like that. You know, to keep birds and pigeons. I think we got some up around the AC units up on the roof. Those are called discouragers. That pigeon right there cannot prevent those discouragers from being there. He can't. He's not powerful enough. He can't unscrew them and install them. But you know what he can do? He can control his response. He built a nest right behind him. Take that, discouragers. You want to know what to do when there's people that are discouragers? You can't really get rid of them. They're always going to be there. But you can work around them. You can ignore them. And you can say, buzz off. I don't care about your discouragement. I'm going to do what needs to get done. You can't stop all the discouragers. But you can control your response. You can control whether or not you give in. Or if you burn out, it is possible to defeat discouragement and prevent burnout. How do we do that? In the same way that Nehemiah did here. Focus on God. That's what he did. Focus on God's work that needs to get done. And focus on his people. And by his people, I mean the ones right here that are stepping up and working. Find encouragement in that. So you might be discouraged today. You might feel a little burnout. And maybe it's not church stuff that's burning you out. I mean, I know my whole life revolves around that, and I'm the preacher. But it really should revolve around all you guys too. But besides that, you might have discouragement in your families right now. You might have discouragement at work. You might have discouragement in some kind of relationship. There's probably something out there that's really pulling you down, making you want to just give up. Focus on God. Focus on his work. Find other people that are doing good work too and focus on them, and you can defeat that discouragement and you can at least control how you respond to it. The lesson is yours this morning. Don't be discouraged. Defeat that discouragement. And if we can help you do that, you can come forward as together we stand and as we sing.